All right.
A great time to go live. Let's go.
All right.
Woo.
All right. Welcome to the People's Tommy Point Charity Drive for 18. I'm Ryan, the Wristman Hebert. We are fully live and functional as a Death Star now. Big shout out to Efren Ramos, our producer. He's been so great with this, and we just got this problem. All the kinks worked out, and we're good. The People's Tommy Point Charity Drive for 18 is a community-driven drive to reinvigorate some life into the community, into the Celtics season, and just into the atmosphere. So far, we've raised a little bit over $30,000 for the YounGameChanger Foundation. That has gone above and beyond basically anything I ever comprehended going into this. And I'm thinking, let's have a telethon with the fellas. Let's introduce everybody. I'm joined here by the originator who came up with the idea, Rich Levine, Sean Hyken, who I've known forever, who really gave me a start in covering basketball.
We go all the way back. We're talking like 10 years ago, man.
Yeah, we've been knowing each other for a while.
It's been a long time.
I've always called Sean the Bowie to my Iggy Pop, so I'm thankful to have him here. And we're also joined by Eric Garcia Gunderson, our good friend at Lakers Wire, I believe.
Yes. Well, No, I was running the LeBron Wire for a very long time. So yeah, definitely shout out Riffs. Thank you so much, bro. Like, and I just love to riff with you. Like, I mean, we are the Palinka boys over here. You know, we're the Palinka biographers. So thank you for having.
Robbie Deals, what's going on?
Bobby Deals is a visionary and a maestro, someone I look up to every day in my endeavors. But basically what we're doing today is just trying to connect everybody a little bit more, trying to get everybody in the community feeling a little bit better about the situation we've all been through. This pandemic has been hell. This pandemic has isolated people. Even online, it feels like it's added to a negative environment. So this whole thing is just a jam session where we bring together some interviews and some music and some great people to celebrate Marcus Smart and to celebrate his cause and Celtics basketball.
And I just feel much better that we're actually live right now. That was not a fun few minutes. Thank you for everyone for sticking with us. Very much appreciate that. We're going to bring in our first guest. Riff, you ready for guest number one in the evening?
Our guest number one is with the YounGameChanger Foundation. He's an associate and friend of Marcus Smart. His name is Kenny Boren, and we're very, very thankful to have him on this broadcast.
Here he is, Kenny. He's connecting to the audio. Kenny.
What's up, guys?
How you doing?
Kenny, we're so grateful to have you and for your cooperation and collaboration with this drive. Could you tell us a little bit about what YounGameChanger does in the community and what Marcus aims to do with it?
You bet. The foundation, the YGC Foundation, YGC stands for YounGameChanger. Way back when Marcus was drafted, and really in his Oklahoma State years, he kind of was into this thing about changing the game and the way that the game was. He wanted to see the game played, the game of basketball, and it was really focused on kids and with youth. And so it actually started with his Instagram tag, which was YounGameChanger, which you probably know off his Instagram. From that, when he got drafted, we kind of ran with it with the brand of YounGameChanger. And so through that branding, it became kind of a three-headed monster. One of the three heads of that was his AAU program. He had a kind of an AAU team that still exists today. And then he had the camps that we run in the summer, the kids camps. And then the third was the charity. He wanted to start something, a charitable foundation that would help underprivileged kids or kids that were sick. That was kind of the two focuses of that. And through that, the YounGameChanger Foundation was formed. Bill Wilk and Aaron run that. They're kind of the management company that runs the YounGameChanger Foundation that targets kids. And the two target areas of kids that the whole foundation targets is kids that are sick. You guys probably know, and I know pretty much all of Boston knows the backstory of Marcus's mom and his family that has gone through quite a bit of tragedy with cancer. Marcus's oldest brother Todd, and of course his mom as of late. So he really wanted some of that YGC, as we'll call it, charity work to go towards hospitals. And so him being in Boston, it just made sense to do a lot of that work with Boston Children's Hospital. And so we do work with the Boston Children's Hospital. Quite a bit of stuff is actually fixing to be announced in the next couple of weeks. Some more stuff that's going on with the hospital there. And then the other part of it is just with kids in general, not kids that are necessarily sick, but kids that are underprivileged from a financial standpoint, urban kids, urban city kids, kids of color, people of color that need help. And so he has used a lot of his time and his effort and the foundation to, and this is more recently that we're doing this, to target youth basketball in urban areas. And specifically, we're starting to work with the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We haven't done anything in Marcus's home area, charity-wise, in Dallas. So that's our next target area. And so the fact that this has been going on, that you guys have sparked this charity deal is really, really cool, because it's popping up at the exact perfect time to use this money that's going to be donated towards, it's going to be basketball, inner city basketball in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and in the Boston area. So specifics, we don't know that yet. That's a brainstorm between me, Marcus, Bill, Aaron, Marcus's agent, Phil Forte, another close-knit person in our circle. But it definitely will go to kids. Anybody that knows Smart, it's all about kids. So this is a really cool deal. So hopefully that gives you a very quick overview of just kind of the YGC Foundation and what its purpose is, which is to ultimately serve kids in one way or the other.
Hey, Kenny, I was going to say, you mentioned much earlier in your answer about Marcus getting drafted. You coached him in high school. At what point did you know that Marcus Smart was going to be drafted? Like, how different was he from all the kids you've seen over the years?
That's a tough question, because the team that I met Marcus coming out of his 8th grade year when he came into our high school where I was coaching at, and he played on a really good ball club. I mean, he had some really good players around him. We won the state championship back to back, and almost won it back to back his sophomore, junior, and senior year. So we had a really, really good ball club. We went I think in a 3-year stretch there, his sophomore, junior, senior year, we went 115-6. So that's a pretty good record. And we played a national schedule. Most of our games were on ESPN. So I can't truthfully look at you and say that I knew he was going to be in the NBA when he was. I don't think anybody knew that. Marcus was a guy that flew under the radar. He's not some 6'8" guy. He just kind of did what he's always been the guy that he's been. The player that he is now is not a whole lot different from a standpoint of blue collar, nitty gritty, do things that nobody else wants to do type player. But, when he graduated after we won our 2nd state championship, it was pretty obvious that he had something special and that he would be playing in the league. I don't think anyone could have truthfully told you that he would be a lottery pick, though. Me and him actually had that discussion about playing in the NBA. We were sitting at the back of the gym after his senior year season, just me and him having a combo at night. It was after open gym, and I was like, you're going to play in the league, right? And it's just kind of a funny talk that we had. But to say that he would have gone the position that he went on in the lottery, I don't think anyone really knew that was going to be that crazy of a fire. It just happened so fast.
Now, Kenny, Marcus's heart and soul and approach to basketball is what endears him so much to this community and so many people. Is there like an insight into Marcus that maybe people don't know that you've seen in your interactions and life with him that really kind of would help us know more about him?
I could tell you a ton of stories. I think what makes Marcus so unique and people gravitate towards him from a fan standpoint is that every fan kind of relates to him. The NBA can be a very selfish league. It's a business, and it can be very selfish at times. Marcus is such, and his play is so indicative of non-selfishness. I mean, he does things that you really just don't see in the NBA. I mean, you don't see guys take you know, on average, a charge every other game. Marcus has no problem taking charges, diving on loose balls, earning. You guys up in Boston gave him a nickname a year or two ago. Like, I think y'all called him the Cobra or something, Cobra Strike or something. And, you know, he just does things that kind of resemble what the true fan wants in a player. And that's not what true fans, especially Boston fans, because you guys are nuts.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm a Dallas guy. So, you know, all of us Dallas Cowboy fans are all fake fans down here. You guys aren't fake. You're actually overly loyal to the point that y'all are nuts. Boston fans are nuts, man.
Oh, yeah. I vouch for this 100%.
Yeah, so I just think that people relate to him. You know, he brings a style of play that's very old school that I think a lot of people want to see in the NBA, but you don't see that very often because it's just, you know, it's just like the NFL, like any professional sports league. It can be selfish, you know, because people are playing for contracts, people are playing for money, people are playing for whatever. Marcus just plays because he likes to play. To give you some insight on him, he just is a very loyal guy. You know, his circle of trust, I guess, or friendship is very small. But like he would stop his car. I've been with him on multiple occasions where we've stopped and pulled over because he wanted to help somebody. Or more like Marcus's style, he would stop when he lived over in Kelly Olynyk's old condo, up kind of by, I guess, North Side.
They live together, Kenny?
No. Kelly, he rented Kelly for a while. He rented
after Kelly went to Miami.
When Kelly left, he rented his condo.
It would have been a great
harbor.
sitcom.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, tell me. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That could make for great stuff. But I mean, I remember just one particular story. We're driving the car. I was driving. We'd gone to get some pizza, I believe, and we were crossing over the bridge, and there were these two like 18, 17-year-old kids on the side, and we're at a red light, and Smart just rolls the window down, and he does this all the time. He's like, "Hey man, you dropped something," and like the kid didn't drop anything, and like Marcus will get out and be like, "Yeah, you dropped this $20 bill or $50 bill or $100 bill or whatever," and like, and then as this is all going on, the kid realizes that's Marcus Smart, and it's just funny. Like he just likes to mess with people, and he's a very people person. But I think more so he's more of a first of all, he's a child. I mean, he's like an 8-year-old going on 28. He's 27 going on 28, but he's like 8 years old. Gets on your nerves like no other. But he loves kids, man. Like his biggest mission is, and you guys have seen the stories out of Boston where I believe maybe 2 years ago, the kid that was disabled. I don't know. Y'all kind of might jog my memory here. There was a kid with a disability. Marcus spotted him, made sure to go over and acknowledge him, gave him his jersey after the game, and it ended up being a big story. They actually became friends. And there was a girl, same thing with a young girl. She was like 6 that had gone through a tragedy in her life, and then they kept in contact just from an inspirational standpoint. That's just 2 stories off the top of my head. You know, I think that's what makes him unique. He just has a huge heart. He's just got a big heart, man. Like, you know, I guess he's got this tough guy image, or want to start a fight image, or gets a technical foul image, or whatever. Anyone that knows him knows that he is like the biggest heart. Like he just really cares about people, man. Like I love him to death, man. He's the real deal.
Hey man, we love him and we trust him. We want to thank you for your time, Kenny. We want to shout out the Young Game Changer organization and foundation. We're so proud to be able to get this money over to you guys now that you're taking the next steps with your org. And we just want to thank you so much.
Hey, we want to thank you. This is nuts what y'all have done. Like, this is crazy. I mean, Rich reached out to me a week or 2 ago, and you know, I mean, Rich,
you know what to think.
Wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, Rich, maybe I'm wrong, but I would have never. This just skyrocketed.
I didn't either. I didn't even think you were going to take our call, to be honest. But once we got through, and after that first pitch, man, it went from there. We're all as shocked as you, I think. We're proud.
You got Mike Zarren tweeting y'all. I mean, that's like the Boston Celtic right there. Mike Zarren is.
We got Mike Zarren is following you.
Yeah, I heard. That's going to be good. I have a feeling if Mike's coming on, something big's probably about to happen because that's just Mike and Danny and all those guys. They're just really cool people. Mike's a great man, but we appreciate y'all. Like Marcus and me and Marcus's agent, Josh Katrozer, have been talking literally probably once an hour about this because it's kind of like a tracker. Like if there was a tracker app, we would be tracking this. Like it went. I mean, Rich, I remember you texted me, like, yeah, it's already at 6,000 and 7,000 and 10,000 and 15,000. And so it's pretty exciting just to see what you guys have done. And I promise you, if I were to show you my text exchange between me, Marcus, and Josh over the past, like, 3 days, it would verify what I'm telling you. Like, he's just, like, super touched by all this.
Awesome.
That's why he got the Tommy Award, man. That's what he's about. And we're so thankful for you, Kenny.
Yeah, we appreciate y'all. And he's coming on, so he'll be on here a little bit later. So, Rich, just touch base with me, and then we'll make sure we get him on.
Awesome. Thanks, Kenny. You're the best.
All right, guys. Hey, we appreciate y'all. If you need anything, holler.
Thank you, Kenny.
See you guys. Bye-bye.
All right, I'd like to take a moment and talk about Tommy Heinsohn and his impact on all our lives, especially because of this next interview coming up. Tommy Heinsohn, for me, I've been watching basketball games since the Paul Pierce game when he took it all the way back against the Nets. And I can't think of anybody who's impacted my attitude more than Tommy Heinsohn. Basically, I think every draft pick the Celtics make is going to be a Hall of Famer, as good as Bill Russell. Like Greg Steensma, he thought was on his level. And it's just that positive attitude towards people's growth and development, I think, really personifies Tommy. And this next interview is someone who knows Tommy probably more than anybody else who ever, has ever worked with him or known him. We were lucky enough to talk to Mike Gorman, the Celtics voice, about this season, about the challenges of broadcast during the pandemic, and really just about life in general. And so Efren's going to cue it up, and we have Mike Gorman with us. It's been a very difficult season. I think we can see it wearing on the broadcast. We can see it wearing on the players. And I wanted to reach out to you, and I'm so gracious and thankful for your time in this and your generosity in this. And I would like to ask you, what has the process been like for you to call games during this? Because it's such an atypical environment.
Well, it's difficult, frankly, depending upon the size of the monitor you have. And probably the biggest problem is when I do 99% of the broadcasts I do, the producer, the director, myself, the color guy, the graphics guy, we're all on the same page. Now everybody's on a different page because we're taking feeds from this person for this and this person for that. We have nobody in studio. So as a result, it's hard. I'm used to how our director cuts the game, so I can anticipate what shot is going to be next and speak to it accordingly. I have no idea what shot is coming up next on the screen with the feeds that we receive. Like we'll go in tonight to do the game against Chicago, and however the Chicago director decides to cut the game, that's what he does because he's the home team. However, he never gives any word to our guy on site what shot is coming up next. So you're constantly playing catch up with what is being seen on the screen. So that's a problem. The other problem is I got used to being courtside. I get spoiled by being courtside. We're like 30, 40 rows back now behind the first whole bowl section of the Garden. We're up where the luxury suites are. And so now you combine everything I just mentioned to you earlier about the difficulty of knowing where they're going to go next, what shot they're going to take next, with the fact that you're now half a football field away from the action. You don't see the numbers as quickly as you should on the players. Then you get games like we had against Orlando the other night, where literally their first 8 players were on the injured list. So it was a bunch of guys from the G League that you had never seen before. So you don't know who they are. You see a lot of text messages now, like how Mike Gorman's slipping and Mike Gorman's getting old. And both, the latter of those is true. I'm not sure about the former.
I don't think so.
A lot of that is because of the fact that you really can't see the numbers, so to identify the player's properly, and then B, you have to try to follow the action that the director is taking, because the worst thing you can do as a broadcaster is for me to be talking about Rich while there's a picture of you on the screen, because the viewer senses this kind of disconnect. And so how I've called games for the last 19 years is when the ball is in play, I watch the court. But as soon as there's a whistle, I watch the monitor, because I want to be able to reference anything I say to what the person at home is actually seeing. Now that may seem like a simple concept, but it's foreign to a lot of broadcasters. If you listen to games on like the NBA League package, you'll hear a lot of guys, they just will talk about what they want to talk about. It doesn't matter what you see on the screen. And eventually, again, that disconnect kind of gets to you. So that's a very long-winded answer to your question. Is it difficult to do these games? Yes, it is more difficult than I thought it was going to be. We'll be very happy when we can go back to doing games the way we have in the past, where we've always done them. But as of right now and through the playoffs of this year, we're just going to have to grin and bear it.
You know that old Croatia game with Johnny Most when they
Yes,
that's
yes.
The magic is your version of the Croatian.
Without question, it's like the short guy over to the guy with the beard, the guy with the ponytail. Yeah, that was John's call, and it was accurate at the time. But yeah, we do run into that problem. And, you know, like I'm anxious, not anxious, but I look forward to the Miami games this week, the 2 games Sunday and Tuesday, and even the Chicago game tonight, because I know these teams pretty well. I know the first 7 or 8 players that are going to be out on the court. So it allows me to, again, watch what's going on in the screen and try to talk to it, as opposed to trying to refer to my notes or a roster guide that I have somewhere to find out that last foul that I thought was on player A was actually on player B. And that's where all the internet stuff starts. Like, you know, Mike's made a lot of mistakes. And I want to say, well, you come in this booth and try to see how you do.
No, it's a palpable thing, I think, in terms of being able to listen to the broadcast and feel that it's almost just like an energetic disconnect from the audience, if that makes sense, in terms of the crowd. And that to me is something that's really stuck out. I want to talk to you about something on a much more positive note. To me, the spirit of Tommy Heinsohn is absolute positivity about draft picks. For me, whenever somebody's drafted to the Seas, I think they're going to be a star. And I think that was Tommy's influence on my life. And I wanted to talk to you about 3 of the younger guys who I think have really stepped up and added so much.
Sure.
That's going to be Nesmith, Pritchard, and Rob Williams. I wanted to ask you your impression first on the 2 rookies and how they've been able to step in really atypical and adverse circumstances.
Yeah, they've done a very good job. Pritchard especially, I think we'd have to wait first, but certainly the way Aaron has played over the past week or 2, he has suddenly emerged as why they picked him number 1. I think we were all influenced that on draft night by Jay Billis talking about how this was the best shooter in the draft. So I think we all got this image in our mind of some guy who's planted out beyond the 3-point line all the time, just kind of waving for the ball, saying, "Give it to me and I'll shoot it." And Nesmith has turned out to be so much more the athlete than we thought he was. In fact, he might be the most athletic person we have next to Rob Williams. So it's been very fun to watch him over the last couple of weeks emerge as an athletic player and not just a shooter. But to go back to Pritchard has been solid from day one. You know, I'm a big, you mentioned the draft, I'm a big fan of 4-year guys. I think guys who stay in college for 4 years and come out turn out to be much better players than we ever thought they were. And if you're winning the Bob Cousy Award and you're the number 1 player the last 2 years in the Pac-10, you know how to play the game. I don't care if you're 6'1", if you're 6'1", 180 pounds, you know how to play the game. And it's very obvious Pritchard knows how to play. And it's from the time he steps on the court, Brad uses the expression basketball play. He inevitably makes the right basketball play with what it is. That may not turn out to be successful, but it was the right pass to make at the time. So I'm become a big fan of Pritchard and fast becoming a fan of Nesmith, because I think we needed athleticism coming off the bench. We had a certain amount of toughness with Grant Williams. You know, he comes out and he throws his body around and he's not afraid to cover people that are 20 pounds heavier and 3 inches taller. But we didn't have the athleticism that a lot of teams have. And so to see Nesmith emerge like this, for Pritchard to be the hustler that he is, and to put him out there with smart, then you really can harass people and bother people. And so I think these guys, as unusual as it is, I think these guys are going to play a major role in the playoffs, even though they're just freshmen, for lack of a better way to put it.
I think the biggest thing I've noticed with Neesmith is, especially coming off of a lack of summer league and a lack of camp, he's gotten the rotations down defensively so much more, and you start to see him as an impact guy. Really, I think one of the games that to me stood out was he really seemed to harass and get Kyrie off of his game a little bit. And then I started to notice that with a lot of the high impact offensive players, they really don't like dealing with him. And that for me has been really fun to watch and to see him blossom into one of those impact guys. And it feels like he's playing in the spirit of Marcus Smart. It feels like he has really taken off with that.
Yeah, Marcus, for all the trouble he gets in, for all the things he does, and some of them I would like to think he would take back if he could. Maybe he wouldn't. But Marcus, to me, if I were going to award a captaincy to somebody on this team, I'd give it to Marcus Smart without question. I think he's the physical leader. I think he's their emotional leader. I think he brings, some people say it's not the right thing, but I think it is. He brings toughness to the floor. You're going to pay a certain price for trying to take advantage of him on the offensive end if you're an offensive player. He's going to be physical with you. He's going to take charges. He's going to beat you to the spot. He's just going to make your life miserable while you're on the court. We haven't had a defender like that in a long time, and I think we need guys to come in and we need guys who want to be the next Jason Tatum, but we also need guys who want to be the next Marcus Smart.
Absolutely.
Is there a former Marcus Smart? Is there anyone, as you said, it's been a long time since we had a defender like that. Is there anyone in all your years that sticks out?
I'm sure if I started going through rosters, I'd find somebody way back when. I've done too many games, Rich, to remember them all. But not lately. Not in even on the Garnett team, we had Garnett, but we really didn't have a lot of defenders per se. We came off the bench with the likes of Eddie House and people like that who were looking to shoot the ball. Yeah, we have not had that kind of guy. And you go around the league, there aren't many. Beverly is a name that comes to mind with the Clippers. He's tough, really good defensive player. But there aren't a lot of guys. There aren't three guys in the league better than Smart. I know that for sure.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. He's actually the inspiration for this. To me, he's Mr. Celtic right now. He's the guy who is the heart and the soul. And I thought picking his charity and foundation was especially near and dear to my heart with his background and personal story. And I thought an influx of a little bit of positivity towards that would go along with this season. I'd like to ask you a question about Robert Williams. He's my favorite guy. I'm kind of connected to him in a little bit of a way because of the Time Lord thing, which I actually stopped using because I thought it started to get a bit negative and a bit too much in the past. And I just am so blown away by the leaps and bounds he makes it feels like every week he's adding something. And to me, his passing is so rare at that position. What have you seen from Robert in his growth?
I see an all-star player in 2 or 3 years. Again, athleticism brings it to the front line, which we haven't had in a long time. We have toughness and Tristan Thompson there, but we don't have really athleticism and able to go up and go get alley-oops and block shots. And yes, his passing has been a pleasant surprise, especially over the last couple of weeks. He has really adapted to being a starter very, very well. A lot of guys have a problem coming in and doing that, especially after they've been playing off the bench and coming into games where the tempo is established already, as opposed to getting a chance to initiate that tempo at the beginning of the game. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Rob. I think he should start for us, and I think we should just move on to other problems that we have and just put him right in permanently as a starter. He's getting smarter, as you say, every week. He doesn't get in foul trouble like he used to early. He picks his spots a little bit. He's just a very good player, and we're seeing more and more of his personality as he tends to get interviewed, which he wasn't before. And he seems to be, at least basketball-wise, he's a bright kid.
Mike, what's the ceiling on his range, do you think? Do we see him? Do you see him outside the three-point line at any point?
Well, everybody seems to have to shoot that shot these days, Rich. So, whether they want to shoot it or not, they have to go out and practice it. But I don't want to see him floating around the three-point line. I want to see him cutting to the basket or close to the basket and trying to get an offensive rebound. God knows we have enough three-point shooters without taking Rob and spoiling him on that account.
And I think personally, having watched watched his growth since A&M. I think one of the utilities he has is that driving is much easier for Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown when he's setting screens. Shooting is much easier for Kemba Walker when he's setting screens.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you play to your strengths like that, he doesn't necessarily need that. I think he adds value by being his unique version of himself.
Mm-hmm.
I had 2 more questions for you because we don't want to keep you too long. I've been told that when you visit Memphis that you pick up guitars and collect guitars. And I'm a guitar guy. I was really interested into what was the impetus for that. How did you get into collecting guitars? And do you have a favorite guitar player or musical act?
I'm a big Mark Knopfler fan. Yeah.
Yes. I love Dire Straits.
Yeah. Yes, I do like Dire Straits, and I like some of the stuff he's done independently by himself since then. I just, and I'm terrible. I'm not very good at playing the guitar. My wife is really good. She practices a lot. I'm not a practice guy. I just expect it's going to come to me. It doesn't come as fast as I want it to be. But yeah, I started really because when we went to Memphis, directly across the street, it's not there anymore, but directly across the street from the hotel that we would stay in was the Gibson factory.
Yeah.
And you could go, have you been there?
I've been to the one in Nashville. I used to play music and try to do sessions in Nashville.
Yes, and you can wander around and pick guitars off the wall and just fool around with them, and nobody bothers you. And there's no hassle, except people want to see whether you can play or not, and determine whether they're going to stand around or not. But so I just became fascinated by how guitars were made, and they allowed you to walk through the whole process of how they go from a piece of wood to a beautiful musical instrument. So then my wife was playing a little bit, and so there was a Dylan, a guitar that Dylan had used somewhere that was on sale, and so I bought it for her birthday, and that just kind of got me hooked a little bit.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so yeah, that got me hooked, and now that I just I have all my friends who are in the secondhand business. I seem to know a lot of guys who have gone that way in terms of a career. And I always am telling they're calling me from anywhere saying like, hey, Mike, I'm down in Long Island right now. And there's a Fender, blah, 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 sitting here that the guy wants this much money for. So, so I try to pick my spots. My wife is like, I think I have 5 or 6 guitars right now. And she's like, that's good. That's a good number right there. You don't need
5 or 6 is nice, especially if they're quality ones. Do you have a favorite?
Yeah, I have I'm trying to move the camera so you can see it.
Yeah, let's see it.
There's
oh yeah, over the shoulder.
Yeah, over my right shoulder. Yeah. Do I have a favorite? Yeah. The Dylan guitar I bought for her, I really like. I have a Martin, about a 10-year-old Martin that's a nice piece, and I have one that's about 30 years old. That when I was stationed in the military, I was stationed in Rota, Spain, and that was a lot of guitar makers. When you go into town and walk around, like coffee shops, on every corner there was a guitar maker. So I have a classical guitar that I brought about 25 years ago in Spain. So that's pretty much my collection.
That's fantastic. My last question for you. Do you have one particular Tony story that people might not know that's really funny, something that like just captures his nature and his enthusiasm for the sport and life in general?
Yeah, there are a lot of great stories. Unfortunately, when we moved from Woburn to Needham, where the studios are right now, a lot of the old footage of Tommy got erased and thrown away. It's really a shame because we had great footage of him at the Seattle Fish Market throwing fish around with guys. And he was just there were a lot of great things about Tommy, but one of the greatest was he was game for anything. If you said, Tommy, let's go out and do this, he'd be like, yeah, all right, let's give that a shot. We'll try that. And he had his ego was so large, he just always thought he would be successful in everything he did. He just assumed that to be the case. But to give you a reoccurring theme that people may or may not know, and there's no exaggeration to this fact at all. When the game got close down the stretch, all of a sudden, Tommy became a player. And every time a shot would go up, I would feel this right elbow would come out and would push me back in my chair.
Literally, the box out?
Yeah, because he's boxing out, And I would look at him and I'd say, what the, I'm trying to do the game here. And he'd go, yeah, okay. And then the next shot that goes up, boom, I feel his elbow, crunching into my right side. And he just couldn't help himself. He couldn't help himself. He was in the game. He wasn't coaching it. He was literally in it. So when a shot goes up, he had to box out somebody. Or I'd actually see him sometimes where he'd get his hands up like this, like the ball was going to come over and he's going to catch it and shoot it, which he would have. But that's probably the most reoccurring thing. And that started on day one. We broadcast games together for 40 years. And that started on day one. And the last game we did, I can show you some marks on my side from where he whacked me with his right elbow to try to get position for that rebound that somehow was going to come his way. No, I've been around a lot of basketball people in my life. No one was ever as into the game and into the moment as Tommy. Not even close, really.
That's beautiful.
That to me, that is so beautiful and so indicative of just like how much his heart and soul was in the game. I want to personally thank you. My whole life, I've been watching you. Everybody I know has been watching you our whole lives, and we're just so grateful and thankful for your presence and your career, and just for being a part of this today. Thank you so much, Mike.
Thank you. That's
Thanks,
really nice
Mike.
to hear. You made my day. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay.
All right, Mike.
Hey, this is Wristman again. Thank you to Mike Gorman for coming in. That was just an incredible interview, and I had never really thought about the difficulties of broadcasting when you're displaced from the booth. So that was, for me, a gigantic revelation to be able to speak with him. And also, I mean, to know that Tommy was connected to the pulse of the game to the last seconds of his life with still bumping Mike every time was just fantastic. And really, I think that was Tommy in a nutshell. He lived and died with Celtics basketball. So we're so thankful to Mike for him coming in.
And Riffs, speaking of coming in, our next guest is ready. This is a guy, as we're having these technical difficulties, the only thing that could make me feel worse is Mike Zarren texting me LOL over and over and taunting us as we struggle to get on the air. But Celtics, is your audio on? We can't hear you laughing.
Here.
Okay. Yes, the assistant general manager of the Boston Celtics. Oh, this is literally, I'm about to have a panic attack.
How am I supposed to follow that, guys?
Oh, Mike Gorman?
Yeah. I mean, that was an incredible interview. What am I supposed to say now? Jeez.
You're supposed to say...
Mike Gorman's an absolute legend, and Marcus Smart is also an absolute legend, and somehow I'm supposed to be between them. I don't know what I'm supposed to do here, but...
Well, your other choice was to be on the other side of Marcus Smart. I didn't want to do that to you.
Happy here. I think that's right.
So tell us, when did you think that Marcus Smart might be a Celtic? What did you see in him? What did you guys see in him? Can you remember? Like the first scouting tape, did you go to?
We watched him all through college. There's a great, I'm watching the chat. There's some funny things in the chat, but there's a great story about Danny and Tony Allen, and where we're about to draft Tony Allen, and Wick says that this is one of my first drafts. Wick says to Danny, like, Tony Allen, isn't that the guy who got into a fight with a cop? And Danny goes, yeah, that's the guy I want. Marcus goes into the stands to challenge a fan who's used a racial epithet against him, and not to fight him, but just to tell him that that's not acceptable. He's just got balls like no one else. He's really, really unique. I agree totally with Mike that there aren't a lot of people like him in Celtics history or basketball history, really. And so, our big question in college was his shooting, which was just okay. It wasn't ever bad, but it wasn't as good as it needed to be in the NBA. But we knew he could do everything else. And I went to one of his last college games at Iowa State. I'll never forget this. The whole, player introduction. Iowa State's one of the most underrated places to see a basketball game in the whole country. The fans there are really incredible, and Ames is sort of in the middle of nowhere. And when they introduced Marcus, the entire student section flopped. And Marcus thought it was like the funniest thing ever. He thought it was like hilarious, and he went out and just destroyed their whole team that game. It was amazing. The other thing I'll remember about Marcus pre-draft is we had him in for a draft workout, and he didn't play well at all. It was one of the worst draft workouts of that year, and we all had been pretty high on him. Our statistical stuff liked him. Our scouts liked him. Danny loved him. but the workout was not good. And we get a call a couple days later, and it's from Marcus's agent saying like, this is a weird thing to say, but Marcus just called me and he's desperate to come back and work out for you again. He knows that wasn't a good workout. And you just knew that he was, all effort all the time. He came back in the second workout and totally dominated everyone else in the room. I don't know what happened the first workout, but we were pretty sure after that second workout, we were drafting him.
Mike, my name's Ryan. Many people call me the Wrist Man. I'm responsible for the. Yeah, man, I'm responsible for all the insane stuff you have to deal with online. It's come to my attention, basketball aside, that you are a drummer, and we have Neil Peart standing in the background of Sean. We gotta know who your top 5 drummers are, man.
Oh, top 5. You're putting me on the spot to come up with a list of top 5.
You're on the hot seat, baby.
I gave you a heads up.
Well, if I can push you in direction for number 1.
The heads up I got was like, John Bonham's my favorite drummer of all time. It's not
sure, yeah.
He not as technically savvy as
right. No, but
that one's easy for me. My second favorite drummer is someone you guys probably won't know. He's actually my drum teacher, and that's like a cheesy thing to say, but Ron Savage, longtime head of all ensembles at Berklee College of Music, session musician with like Sonny Rollins, Holiday, and a big bunch of other jazz musicians. He's just absolutely incredible. So I got to put him in there. Obviously Neil Peart and everybody.
Yeah.
Drummer. I'm gonna just pick a random other drummer and stop there. Underrated recent drummer, because I like to listen to a lot of weird electronic music, and he's not an electronic musician but has played with a lot of them, is a guy named Yuval Gabai, who is the drummer for Soul Coughing, which is a band you might remember from the 90s.
I know them.
What was the one hit? They had one really.
Well, they had actually 2 hits, but neither of them are anywhere close to my favorite Soul Coughing song. They got Super Bon Bon that you might remember, and then Circles, which doesn't sound like any other song.
That's it.
Walk around in circles. That doesn't sound like any. Yeah, see, now there's people in the chat who know what I'm talking about. Let the man go through. Like that's what I'm talking about. There's some good Soul Coughing music, but I think I'll just stop there. There's so many good drummers. We have a bunch of drummers at the Celtics. Wick plays drums. Our head of security, Jim Mayall, is also a drummer. So we got a good little drumming crew. Nobody knew this about me until like suddenly, instead of sitting way up in the balcony, I'm sitting courtside now, and people sort of see me playing the drums during timeouts and there's music.
What's your if I throw out a Tommy Heinsohn memories? Is there a story, a Tommy story you like to share?
I tweeted this, so it's not a new story, but like there used to be this room that Danny and I had like just inside the tunnel that the team comes out of, that was sort of our office at the Garden before we remodeled there. And I don't know when, maybe 2010, 11, Tommy just started coming in and hanging out there before the game. We needed a place to sit. We had a really comfy couch. And I was in there a lot, more than Danny. Danny doesn't come to all the games for various reasons, and he's scouting some and stuff. And so he knew I was in there, and he'd just come in and sit down next to me on the couch and just start talking about the team. And we talked for hours and hours about, the opponent, our team, the draft, whatever. He had no reason to talk to me, right? Particularly, back then, I people know who I am now, but nobody knew who I was then. And he just lived Celtics basketball every single minute of his life. And there won't ever be another person like him associated with an NBA franchise, as far as I'm concerned, who's done everything, lived every moment. And it didn't, I'd be talking about someone in this year's draft, and he'd mention a player from the 70s that guy was like. And I'd be like, yeah, I didn't see him play. I've met him, but I don't know what that guy's game was like. But if he's anything like this guy, it'll be pretty good.
I think the 70s was pretty current for a Tommy reference.
No doubt. But Tommy's just one of a kind. It's so many little funny stories he had, rather than one big moment for me. I wasn't traveling around with him like Mike was as much. But he just, people say I'm a big Celtics fan. Obviously, I think my dad is a huge Celtics fan. I said this in my tweet when Tommy passed, like Mike Rotundi's this courtside fan who's been there for 40 years. But the top Celtics fan of all time is Tommy Heinsohn. That's just obvious.
Now, Mike, this is people and a online fan-based initiative. We wanted to get behind it because Tommy's not with us, and the first Tommy Award, we wanted as a community to show it. What is the organization's response to this and everything that's unfolded because of it?
Well, I'll give you my response. I haven't talked to our PR people or Wick or Danny or Rich about this, but I think when Rich told me he was doing this, I just thought it was super special. And then I couldn't believe the outpouring of support over the last few days for this. Marcus is one of the rare athletes where he has a foundation, and it's not just, you know, a way to employ a couple of his buddies and have a charitable ball every year where the money all gets spent to do the ball and not much goes to anyone else. Marcus actually has events all the time where he donates stuff to help kids, in large part in Boston and certainly some in Dallas now. But if you spend any time around Marcus away from the court, he's like every kid who walks by, he wants to talk to him. He's a kid, and the kids recognize that. And it's really, really special how he's committed to doing so much good that he doesn't spend a lot of time publicizing, particularly around Boston. So this is pretty special. We do a lot to support our players' charitable endeavors. And as you know, I'm the cap guy, and there's very specific limits we can do to help them, because otherwise you just promise, you know, when you're signing a guy to give $10 million to his foundation or something like that. So you can't do that. There's real limits on it. But because this year's been so weird, we haven't done all the things that we're allowed to do in a year. And so I checked with our people. I can't do too much, but I'm definitely donating $636, which seems like an appropriate 6 and 36 seems like the right amount. I can't do much more because of the cap rules and what we've done for other players and things, but I'm in for that. This is really, really special what you guys are doing. And thanks so much to everyone who's donated. It really will go really to help kids. And that's not something that you hear all the time with Athletes Foundation. So thank you so much, all of you guys, for putting this on. Really special.
Thank you, Mike. We're grateful to have you, and to know your top drummers is like, that was the top priority for me. Like, I don't know about everybody else, but
It wasn't.
Thank you so much for your time, man. We really appreciate it.
I sure wasn't expecting to come on a chat with a big bunch of weird Celtics Twitter people and talk about drummers, but I guess that's appropriate. I know if I weren't working for the team, I'd be spending more time paying attention to what all you guys are doing online. There aren't too many fan bases with a group like, it isn't even like some sort of formal group, but like Weird Celtics Twitter is a pretty special thing. So thank you for being involved in that as well. It's pretty neat.
Thank you, Mike.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike.
All right, take care, guys. Enjoy the rest of the night. Donate. If you haven't donated yet and you're watching this, freaking donate.
There it is. Thanks, buddy. Speaking of which, Sean, have you donated?
I have not. I was going to do it live on the air, and in fact, let's do that right now.
Well, and while you're doing it, and Zarren mentioned it, so I want to make sure we reinforce this, is that Kenny had texted me earlier in the show and said that they're going to put this donation that we give them, both the donations, in their grant programs account. So we can let everyone know 100% of the money raised is going to go to funding youth programs, and none of it's going to be used for overhead for the cost of the foundation. So, you know, like Zarren was saying, like people throwing events that, you know, basically it's just you kind of break even. Every penny that we have raised this week is going to the right place. So that's just unbelievable.
I think this is a testament to the online community, to the people being behind Marcus and his cause. And I think just in general, I think like online can be such a bizarre, odd, chaotic, toxic place. But like this past week has really reaffirmed my belief that like people can come together and do cool things in all sorts of settings. And I'm super grateful for everybody who's contributed so far. Sean's contributing right now. He just did it.
I'm about to hit send, but
right into my account.
I'm doing
Slam
it.
that button, baby. Slam
Love
it.
to see it. We love to see it.
Just hit the, hold on, it's processing. It's processing. This is, all right, hold
Just
on.
got the email.
You did.
You got
Right.
the email.
Here you go.
Trust the
Just like-
process,
It is
man.
done.
Yes, you got the email from Sean, no less.
Yeah,
The king,
it's
the king of
the guy who
the
gets
king
the
of
emails
getting
has
the
now
email.
been the one sending the email. So this is like a full circle
Full
moment.
circle. There you go.
The shoe's on the other foot.
Now, right now, we're waiting to get our next guest in, but I want to talk to Sean and Eric about their podcast. I've known Sean for like 10 years, and I'd like you guys to introduce yourselves.
Literally
what you
10
guys-
years.
Yes. I'd like you guys to introduce yourself and what you do with your podcast and journalism in general.
My name's Sean Hike, and I'm an NBA reporter for Bleacher Report. Actually, if any of you on Weird Celtics Twitter know me, it's probably because like 3 or something years ago, I wrote this story for Uprocks about Weird Celtics Twitter, where I interviewed my man Riffs, has kind of made it into, I don't want to take credit for making it into a mainstream thing, but I mean, I think that was the first time it really was like published on a major outlet. And I think after that, you started seeing like, this was not my intention at all, but like you started seeing like people like ESPN using Time Lord in their broadcasts, and like Marcus Smart looking at Smarf memes with Abby on an iPad on like Celtics broadcasts and stuff. Like,
it's still surreal to me that this has happened.
But yeah, Rips. I mean, the thing is, Rips and I, like, I mean, back in the day, back like I think when Twitter was a lot more fun and a lot more like, it was a lot friendlier. It wasn't like it is now, where it's just kind of this group think and just this everybody's kind of like trying to impress each other with whatever. But like, I think Ryan and I kind of have a lot of the same taste in music. And so we kind of bonded over a lot of that as well as some of the basketball stuff. And so that's kind of how that got started. But yeah, I was with USA Today for a while. I was then with The Athletic at the beginning of their sort of run. I've been with BR this is my 4th season now. I was based in Chicago for a while. I used to cover the Bulls. I'm in Portland now. That's where I grew up. Eric and I went to college together.
That's right. Yeah. And then I became a writer. I was a beat writer at a newspaper up here at the Vancouver Columbian, covering the Blazers for a while and also covering some local sports, high school sports and stuff like that. And then also, been freelancing for the past few years for the Associated Press, did some freelance work for the New York Times. And I also was running the LeBron Wire for the past couple of years. And that was really fun. And that was when Riffs and I we started collaborating, because Rob Pelinka, just as a figure, is so inspiring. And so, he generated a lot of prompts for us, if you will, to kind of just jam on things. And that's how Riffs and I really got to know each other a little bit more. And then obviously our podcast is, Sean and I talking about the league. We've been covering it for a long time. And then obviously we know each other. We had Riffs on as a season preview.
I believe Riffs is the only person that's ever been a guest on the podcast that isn't Eric's wife, who's also been on.
So I feel like a luxury guest.
Yeah, we're very like, we aren't really very guest heavy at all. We just like, it's a very short list of people we would ever have on as guests, but Riffs was a no-brainer, obviously. We're just like, that needs to happen.
Yeah, I never got the invite. Mine must have got lost.
Well, Rich, I don't think you and I know each other before outside of this.
Maybe another time.
We met last night for the first time.
Yeah, And I don't know how that happened. I know a lot of the other like Boston media. Like I've known Jay King for years. Jared Weiss is a buddy of mine. Like a lot of the other like Celtics media people are. I
sort of phased out just as they were coming into their own. A little bit older than those guys. But I think our next guest is going to be here very shortly. And it's worth the wait. I mean, this is exciting stuff.
Man of the night, man.
The man of the night.
Yeah.
But that was great conversation with Zarren. Very happy that he was able to join us. And it still blows my mind, man. Riffs. We talked about this a few times over the last couple of weeks. Like, you said you wondered if you were the right person to do this. But I hope you understand. I hope you understand that
anybody else doing it wouldn't be right.
There was only one person. Like I said, I might have had the original thought, but it only happened because Riffs Man exists. Do you know what I mean?
I'm grateful to be doing this. More than anything, we're grateful to be getting the money to Marcus Smart's foundation and the kids. And I just think this is sensational, and we should do it more often. We should be looking to do more things community-based for initiatives to help the players' causes. And I think that's like where Twitter should go. And really the media too. I think we should all be working in cooperation to help their causes, since the game that they play and work at is the thing that gives us all something to talk about.
Riffs, are you ready for your moment?
Oh yeah.
For the moment that we've all been
man.
waiting for?
I'm down.
I'm about to hit admit, and then I don't know what's going to happen next. All bets are off. We can see the name. Marcus.
It says connecting to audio.
Give him a minute to plug in.
There we go.
Marcus, my name's Ryan Hebert. People online call me the Wrist Man. We want to thank you for being here and everything you do. Congratulations on the first annual Tommy Award. What does that mean to you to get that recognition from someone who lived for the Celtics?
First of all, thank you. And, you know, it means a lot. You know, like you said, somebody who lives for the Celtics and somebody, you know, who Celtics fans and family look at as, you know, one of its own legends and the top of the legend list. And, you know, it's an honor, you know, to know Tommy when he was here with us, to know him in general, to be able to listen to his expertise and listen to what he has to say and the advice that he's giving me. So it's definitely an honor to be able to get the first Tommy Award.
Man, I have so many questions. You're my favorite player, first off, that I've ever watched with the Celtics. And I just want to tell you, the whole community is behind you. That's why we got, like, it's you specifically that we're behind on and off the court. And I wanted to ask you a couple of questions. Are you aware that you're changing the game of basketball with your approach to loose balls, to the small parts of the game that not so many people are cherishing? But I watch every game and you give us something new every night. Are you aware of the fact that you're changing the game with your approach?
I am. I'm trying to, you know, especially in today's game, you know, the little things kind of go unnoticed. You know, if you're not scoring 30, if you're not being the flashiest guy, you don't really get talked about or get that much recognition. And, you know, that's all cool and all, but you know, I just wanted to be out there for the people, you know, to let guys know and girls know that, you know, anything's possible, literally. You know, you just go out there and you work hard and you do the little things, you know, and don't really worry about, you know, what everybody else is saying. You know, you will change the game in ways that you couldn't even imagine. And people will just really, really join your side, and the true fans and the true people who know you will understand and really root for you. So for me, that's what it's been about, you know, going out there, you know, and just proving that, you know, anything can happen when you're on that court. And, you know, doing the things that nobody else wants to do and getting that recognition for it.
In my opinion, I think you already have a couple of iconic plays, especially in the playoffs. Which one felt better, the steal against Philly to seal that series or the block on Norman Powell?
Oh, man, definitely the block on Norman Powell. I think only because the game before in Game 6, that exact same move presented itself. And, you know, he got the best of me on that. With the N1. So, you know, coming down in Game 7 with the game on the line, I really just wanted to make an emphasis not to let that happen again. So when that presented itself again, I knew exactly how to approach it and how to go about it. So I definitely have to give it the Game 7 block against Norman Powell.
Now, lastly, we're so grateful for your time. We're going to get a little bit over $33,000 to your foundation. Are you surprised by the outpouring of love from the community? Because it's not a surprise to me. I know how much people love you, man. And what are your thoughts on what the community's been able to do for the first ever Tommy Award?
Oh, wow. Wow. Man, that's words can't even explain it. You know, I've been here my whole career, 7 years, going on 8. I love it here. Everybody knows how I feel about Boston. And, you know, I know exactly how Boston feels about me. You know, this fan base, this family, this organization is at the top of the premier list. And the things that, you know, the fans show on a daily basis like this right now is something that, you know, these are the moments that you live for. These are the moments that you play for, to be able to use your platform in a way to help others and, you know, to get your voice heard and get their voice heard, who probably wouldn't be heard if on a smaller platform. So it definitely shows, the type of commitment that the fans have and support that they have to you. And it means a lot, definitely, in the sense that, a legend that, like I said, and Tommy not being here with us anymore, it's just, it all works together. It's just funny how, talking with Tommy when he was here and listening to him, like I said, and now the first Tommy Award after him being gone it's a lot of emotions going right now.
Do you have a Tommy story, Marcus?
Yeah, he would always sit, and it's funny because I'll tell people this, he would always sit and watch me warm up and shoot when everybody else is criticizing me about it. Tommy was right there, just constantly keep shooting, and Marcus, you got it. And, that accent is the real heavy accent, and you got it. And, just being able to hear him give that advice just meant a lot.
Man, I think it's perfect that you got the first ever Tommy Award because it was palpable and very obvious that he loved your game almost as much as anybody I've ever seen him call games for. So we're so thankful for you, Marcus, what you do in the community and your play on the court, man. Thank you for your time.
No, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it.
We're at 35K right now. Still going.
That's awesome.
We got about an hour and a half left.
That is awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Marcus.
Thank you, Marcus. That was Marcus Smart. That was for me. I've watched.
How you feeling, Riffs?
I've watched every single one of his games and basically worshiped the way he plays. And he's changed my perspective on basketball and on life and on the energetic universe and all that connects us.
Just the vibes.
Vibes, man. He's an all-time vibes player. He uplifts everyone, man, and that's how we all got to be.
Who else is on your top three vibes? So we got Marcus is in the top three. Are there two other guys you can throw out real quick?
All time or just currently?
Let's go current.
In the league or just on the team?
No, let's go league.
In the league. In the league.
Yeah, league.
The vibes guy, number one is Nikola Jokic. I mean, he's whipping passes around that nobody's ever seen before. He's creating new dimensions on the court. He basically is like if I was 7 feet tall playing basketball, so I have to accept that and love that. But I think Jokic is the other one, and then it gets really difficult. But I'd have to say Davis Bertans because he's playing without a finger. He's kind of like Tony Iommi, and his takes from three are some of the most exciting that I've ever seen. So those are my three guys I think in the league, vibes wise. Hyken, who are your guys?
Vibes wise?
Oh yeah.
I think just to be here at Portland, being around him for the last, year and a half, I think Carmelo Anthony is pretty high up on the vibes list. I think Eric can attest to this. Like this version of like the wearing number 00 version of Carmelo Anthony is the vibes are pretty incredible. He's totally content at where he is in his career. He's embraced kind of being the older guy, just all of that. Like the current version of Melo is up there. I don't know how this is going to be controversial or like, because obviously like his exit was kind of ugly from Boston, but also like he was part of that championship team. I've always been a huge Rajon Rondo guy. I covered him in
William Rondo. I mean, we're here.
William Rondo, also the vibes concierge in the bubble. But
he's literally his business is vibes, man.
But I covered Rajon for a year in Chicago, and I mean he's a different type of dude. Like I've never met anybody like him. He's like, besides LeBron, he's probably the smartest player in the NBA in my lifetime. Mm-hmm. And I love the way he controls games. I love the way that no matter what he does in the regular season, you just know that in the playoffs, it's the playoff Rondo thing. And I'm a lot higher on the Clippers this year than I was last year solely because they got him. And then number 3, I guess, Jokic is a good one. I like, you know who I like. I mean, this is, I guess, kind of and I know Eric's going to go with me on this. And this is, I guess, a timely thing because he just signed an actual NBA deal for the rest of the season and for multiple years today. but I've become a big Juan Toscano Anderson guy this year.
Same. I love it.
Just a dude who like worked, like completely just grinded his way up from just the bottom to get to where he is, and now he's an actual contributor on the Warriors, and like I love it.
Riffs when he dove out of bounds in that Celtics game. Is that what you're going to say? Not needed stitches in his head for diving into the scores table and bouncing off 3 different computers and a bunch of plugs. I mean, that's vibes, but that's a little bit of everything.
Right. I mean, I like
that's the Marcus Smart type of. That's a smart exactly. It's a smart type of play.
Yeah,
is what that was.
Those monitors are indestructible, by the way. So
before we get to our next segment, Riffs, real quick, Marcus just texted, says that was awesome. It means so much.
Hey man, he means a lot to us. To even get to talk to him as part of this is just fantastic. And Eric, I need you to come at me hard and fast with your top 3 vibes guys, and then we've got a bit of an advert coming in for us.
Yes, of course. Oh, top 3 vibes guys, real quick. Well, for this season, Anthony Edwards definitely has to be on there. Miles Bridges is another vibes guy that I really love. His dunks, his threes, and another guy for this season. You know what? I'm gonna shout out Cameron Payne.
Oh yeah,
yes.
I love watching that dude get some buckets, especially after all he went through. So thank you, Riffs, for letting me do my top 3 vibes guys. Cam Payne is like such a great vibe. I love watching him play this year.
I think all of these picks were sensational. And something else I think is sensational is some independent podcasts. And I've been lucky enough to know some people in Boston media. For whatever reason, people allow me to come on their shows. And one of them is one of my dear friends, and that's Tom Westerholm and his partner in this, Nicole Yang. And they have a podcast called Geno Time, and they've gotten involved with this and have done a lot of promo. So we have a message from Geno Time, and we'd like to roll that message about this charity fundraiser and their involvement with it and about the community. So this is Tom and Nicole.
What's going on, everybody? We are the Geno Time Podcast. I'm Tom, here with Nicole, with Chris Grenham. We just wanted to talk to you guys for a minute, just say thank you to everybody who's donated so far and to express our support for Tommy Point Charity Drive here, and just express our support for the Riffs, man, and everything that he's been doing. We're recording this on Wednesday evening. He's already up over like $26,000 for Marcus Smart's excellent YounGameChangers Foundation. So just to everybody who's donated so far, thank you. Everybody who's going to donate, thank you. Just wanted to throw it to you guys. I mean, why do you feel like that this, we're all big supporters of this. Why is it important to you guys that we support, this drive that Riffs has put together?
I mean, I've enjoyed Riffsman's presence on Twitter, I think, since I started covering the Celtics, and just logging onto Twitter and seeing his commentary throughout games instantly improved my experience. And sort of as he's found like how he wants to use his platform, I think it's awesome that he's mobilized his following. And like, I really resonated with what he said on our episode. Like, so many people are out there for just like the clout, but he actually wants to like do good for the Celtics community. Like, the Celtics mean something to him and he wants to give back. And I think that's awesome. Like, the fact that they've raised over $25,000 in 36 hours is like insanely, amazing. Like, I don't think anybody could have expected that from like a Twitter community for a sports team, in my opinion. So I think it's easy to get behind most things that Riffsman does, but especially in a time where it's a hard year for everyone because of the coronavirus pandemic, it's a tough season for the Celtics. It's coming at the perfect time.
Yeah, Riff's presence on Twitter is essential for the Celtics community, and I'm not kidding when I say that. Like, this has been a really hard year for a lot of people, and the Celtics have had a really hard year. So that outlet that a lot of people turn toward with this online community hasn't necessarily been the same. So he's reworking the vibes, I guess I could say, and kind of using this online community as a positive space, which I think more people should really try to do. And he's been able to band so many people together and use it for such a great cause to help Marcus's foundation. I mean, I don't really know who wouldn't be behind that. I think it's a no-brainer. So it's awesome. I like seeing it turn back into a positive space, and he's using that online influence for some extreme good. He's raised a ton of money, and as we speak, continuing to raise money. So I think it's fantastic.
Definitely, and I think again, it's really easy for us to throw our support behind Riffs and everything that he's doing. It's really easy for us to throw our support behind the Young Game Changers and everything that Marcus has done there. And Marcus himself. I mean, we've all covered him, and I think I speak for everybody. Like every interaction we've had with him has just been really positive, and you can just see the really good things that he's doing for for community and for kids and with the Young Game Changers. It's really cool. So we're really excited about that. And I think the other thing, just to your guys' point about on the community and just the positivity, I think a lot of people are craving an opportunity to do something good. Like it's been a really hard year, and a lot of people are looking for a chance to, like there's a lot of negativity on Twitter. There's a lot of negativity on especially sports Twitter right now. But that this is a cool reminder that there are a lot of really good people on Celtics Twitter, on Weird Celtics Twitter, on like just the whole community that's been around the Celtics. So just again, we're really happy to support this. We're really happy to be a part of this. If you are interested in the Geno Time podcast, you can feel free to find us on any podcast network. But really, we just want to say again, thank you to everybody who's donated. Thank you to everybody who's going to donate, and just keep it coming. So thanks everyone.
Thank you, Riffs.
All right, and we're back. Sean just proposed to me in the break a question about some Axemen, and I would be remiss if we didn't talk about guitarists during this broadcast. Sean, hit me with your question again.
I was just asking you, I mean, I know this is a subject that's very close to your heart. I was just going to ask you what you thought about the news yesterday that kind of came out of nowhere that Randy Rhoads, Ozzy's old guitarist who passed away after his first 2 albums, is going to get inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
I think he needs to be in there. I think he revolutionized the way the guitar was played with his neoclassical tapping approach that other guys had done it, but he brought more of the minor and melodic minor into it that I think was a compliment or kind of a juxtaposition to what Eddie was doing with the tapping.
It's kind of the evolution of like what Eddie was.
And I think Ozzy's career would have gone very, very, very differently if not for Randy's approach, kind of reinvigorating, I think, his entire recording career. In Randy, to me, he has so many techniques, and I've tried to crib from him the pick tapping, the really quick tremolo with the pick on the fretboard. I think that's one of the most amazing sounds in the history of guitar. And just talking about Randy, we lost Eddie this year. What do you think like Eddie's ultimate work is, in your opinion, in terms of records?
I think the first one, specifically the first side of the first Van Halen album is pretty untouchable. Opening with Running with the Devil, and then you go right into the Eruption, You Really Got Me, Ain't Talk. And honestly, the rest of that record, like Little Dreamer is a song on side 2 that I think like doesn't really get a lot of attention, but that's a really good one. And then I know, and I'm not a guitarist, so you probably can speak more to this. For whatever reason, a lot of guitarists, the one they really point to, the album that they really point to is Fair Warning, as that's the one that they are all really into. That one is a little bit further. I mean, the Hagar stuff never really did much for me. I'm really just about the Roth stuff with them. But like, I think the first album is pretty much untouchable. That's as good as any debut album that anyone's ever released, I think.
I go through all the Van Halen records because I just think his tonal approach evolved so much. And even if the material wasn't quite there, I think he was always coming at technology from a different perspective. And I think basically he always stepped the game up in terms of tone and recording in a way that basically only Les Paul and maybe Jimmy Page in some ways, but really only Les Paul and Eddie Van Halen have that legacy. And I'll say this about that first album. If Eruption weren't on it, we'd be talking about I'm the One is like one of the great, if not the greatest guitar performances of the era. And now, Rich, we're going to hit to you as we get into this next interview. You had a bit of an announcement of sorts.
Oh, yeah. Well, an announcement, a thank you. So for our next interview, Riffs and I got Robert Parish. And as you saw with Gorman, we did most of these interviews on Zoom. Robert had a little bit of problem with the video on his computer. He was traveling. Anyways, we only had the audio. We wanted some visual to go along with our conversation. So Steve Lipovsky, it's a lipovskyphoto.com. Steve was the team photographer for a good chunk of years in the 80s and early 90s, literally on the sidelines with his camera for every amazing moment of Larry Bird's career. And he was kind enough to just donate his photos. And everyone should go, like I said, lipovskyphoto.com. if you're interested in buying some really cool old prints from old NBAs to the 80s, early 90s, Steve has an amazing collection. Check it out. You can order your prints right there. It's super easy. So this is a conversation with Robert Parish with some help from Steve Lipovsky, and we hope everyone enjoys it.
You've had a fascinating life, and I've followed you for so long. I wasn't of your generation, but I've been a fan and have followed you forever. I had some questions about mentorship in your life. The more I looked into you and your vegetarianism and your yoga practices and just living right and stuff, I kept seeing the name Clifford Ray come up, and I wanted to ask you about his impact on your life and how you got into those practices.
Well, when I got drafted in 1976 by the Golden State Warriors, Clifford Ray and George Johnson were the two centers. And one of the reasons why I have such respect for Clifford and George is that they wasn't intimidated. They didn't feel threatened by my presence because I was there to eventually replace them. And I thought it said a lot about them in terms of who they were, their character, and how secure they was with themselves and with their position. And so that's one of the reasons why Clifford Ray name surfaced whenever I talk about how my career got started and how I was mentored, because he showed me that it wasn't just about walking on the basketball floor, playing basketball. It wasn't just about practice, your routine, the process. It's also about eating right, keeping your conditioning where it should be, taking care of yourself, getting rest, staying hydrated, and also one of the some of the best advice that I was given by Clifford and George, that was to stretch every day. That has resonated with me after my playing career, because I see a stretch every day, and that's something that's, in my opinion, paramount for anybody. Because as you get older, as you age, you get tighter and stiffer, and you start to lose your mobility, and you're not as agile, you're not as mobile. So it's paramount to stretch every day.
Is that a first thing in the morning thing for you, Robert? Because I find that once the day starts, it's hard to get into the routine, right?
Exactly. Right after I brush my teeth and get something to drink, I try to stay hydrated. I drink a lot of water. Once I have a bottle of water and I brush my teeth, I get on the floor and stretch every day, and it has paid big dividends. I just can't say enough about how important stretching has been, and for my quality of life.
I agree with that. I got into a type of yoga and meditation that's like changed my entire thought process to being one that's much more positive. I have a question about kind of eras changing. Your big three, which I think started it in my mind, all of them that happen now started with you guys. And yours was a bit more of an organic thing where you had less agency in that era. Red brought you guys in via draft and trade. I was wondering, are there some guys in your era who you really respected that you didn't get a chance to play with? If you could have started your own big three, who might you have played with?
Oh, that's easy. Magic, Kareem, and Worthy.
Oh, Robert, that's a dangerous answer.
I feel like they were just as good as we were, not better, because I feel like they had the edge at the center position because Kareem was a better player than I was. But if I was to start a team and it didn't include Larry Kevin and myself, it'd be Magic, Kareem, and James Worthy.
I don't like thinking about Chief in purple and gold riffs. That's a scary thought.
Oh man, that offense would have been absolutely. I mean, it was already one of the best offenses in the history of the game.
Like, it always blows my mind that you literally played in more NBA games than anyone that has ever lived. And LeBron might have a chance to catch you, but if he doesn't, for whatever reason, there's no one that's even really approaching it. Like, do you ever think about just how much of your life, in a good way, like that you gave to basketball and sort of how much basketball gave to you?
Oh, every day I'm reminded of it. everything that I have, everything that I have seen and accomplished, it points directly to basketball. That's not only for me, but for my family. I was able to provide a better life for my family and my significant others. So I definitely, when I almost every day, I reflect on what basketball has done for me and what I got out of it. And not to mention, because of athletics, I am more in tune to my body. I try to do right by my body because I feel like I did it an injustice because of what I did for a living. Because the human body wasn't meant to take that type of punishment that I put my body through. So I am overly sensitive about what I ingest and how I treat my body because I feel like I abused it through the lens of I was a professional athlete. Same thing with football players, baseball players, any athletes that have had a prolonged career, never going to be the same physically.
Now, does the stretching and the lifestyle changes that you implemented when you were a player, do they help you with the chronic pain of having played basketball for such a long time today?
Well, definitely. Only health issues that I have from being a pro athlete for all those years, I got a temperamental back. I was very fortunate, blessed, lucky, whatever you want to call it. I never had a substantial injury. The worst injury I ever had was a sprained ankle. So I dodged a bullet in terms of catastrophic injury. And so as I said before, nutrition is very important. Exercise is very important. Hydration is very important. Also, weight training is very important. I find that to be significant because it has helped me in terms of my quality of life because as you get older, muscle apathy set in. Your body gets softer. It's harder to maintain firmness, to have that. For me, I like a fit, athletic look. I don't like to look real muscular, but I like to look like I'm in shape, like I take care of myself. And weight training definitely helps in that category.
Hey, Robert, I don't think many of the players in today's era might have fit in very well back in the 80s when you were at the top of your game. But what about Marcus Smart? I think he is one of those guys that I think if we had a time machine could make that transition and fit in pretty well.
Yeah, well, Marcus Smart is I look at him and also Russell Westbrook, a throwback to the era when I was balling because of their mental toughness, how aggressive they are. They approach their game every day. They don't take games off. They don't take nights off. They were Smart and Westbrook are one of the few players that I would spend my money buy a ticket to go watch play. Because I know I'm gonna get everything that they have to offer from a physical and mental perspective. And I like their approach to the game. They respect the game. And I think that's one of the reasons why they're gonna go down as two of the better players. Because I don't think they'll really appreciate it while they're playing. But hopefully when these historians and critics look back on it, they'll get their just dues.
I agree with that 100%. And I think I have one last question for you. I found out that you went to the Grateful Dead with Bill Walton some years ago. Who are some other artists that you're really into besides that? Who are some musical artists you really enjoy?
Well, to be honest, I never was a rock fan. Before I accepted Bill Walton's invitation to go see the Grateful Dead. But another rock group that I like and favor and follow, the Rolling Stones.
Ah.
Oh man,
That's because of my experience when I went to see the Grateful Dead in concert. Then I started paying attention to the Rolling Stones.
They weren't opening for the Dead, were they? What was it about?
No. This is separate. Like I said, I never paid attention to rock music before I went to that concert, because I'm an R&B, jazz, hip hop, reggae fan. I've never been a fan of rock music before I went to see the Grateful Dead. But after that experience, I started paying attention to the Rolling Stones. So those are the two groups. When I think of how my music taste has expanded, I have to give some credit to the Grateful Dead and Bill Walton.
We're talking a little bit in this event too about two Celtics greats that we lost this year. You know, one being Tommy Heinsohn, but we also want to get your thoughts on Casey Jones, who passed, you know, shortly after Tommy, and a guy who you played for, you know, for really the height of your career. Could you give us a little bit of insight on the man that Casey was, and sort of the impact that he had on you?
Casey is a class act, a gentleman, a man of high character. Plus, he's a winner. He's won on every level: high school, college, professional, as a coach. I have the utmost respect for KC, especially off the court, away from sports, by the way he carried himself. And I tried to carry myself with the grace and dignity that he carried himself. I kind of looked at him as a role model, even though he never heard it from me. But I try to carry myself in that same light and with that same respect and high character that Casey Jones carried himself. And to touch on Tommy Heinsohn, I really didn't know Tommy that well, personally or intimately. I just knew he was had blind love for the Celtics. You know, we could do no wrong. So I do like his loyalty, because he was loyal to a fault when it came to the Celtics. And I always respected that. And they seemed like cool people. Because I just watched him from afar. I never spent any time with him and sit down and have a conversation with him. But just observing him, he seemed like he was a cool dude.
Well, thank you, Robert, so much for your time and the effort to help this cause to raise money for Marcus Smart's foundation. We're really appreciative of your time. Thank you so much. All right, so we're back.
Yeah. Thanks. Sorry, Riss, but I was just say thanks to Robert and his thoughts on stretching and the Rolling Stones. We have gone over 37,000. We have 37,004 cents.
That extra 4 cents is really just going to be crucial.
It means a lot. It means a lot. Nice. 17,000 flat is a little too boring.
Yeah.
We're gonna mix it up. 17.00004. I think the math is correct there. Thank you to Robert. It was awesome. You enjoyed that conversation, Riffs?
Man, he put me at ease. Robert's one of my heroes, a guy that I've heard my dad talking about from that era, and so many people, and watching those old videos with him and Larry and DJ, and the minute you talk to him, he just puts you at ease, and he's the coolest guy you could possibly ever meet. And I'm so thankful to Robert and his insights into his life and everything that he had to say. I was going to steer this conversation in kind of a different direction for a few minutes. Something that kind of permeates the entirety of this NBA season is like the ethical considerations of what happens when a league keeps going during a pandemic and the players become a little bit, I wouldn't say co-opted, but in some ways they function a lot like a frontline worker, and they're exposed to a lot of different things in traveling throughout this trying period. And I wanted to talk specifically with you guys about what the energy has been like in terms of the atmosphere of the crowds. And I think Sean has a unique insight to this because he's been going to games for a lot of this. And I was just going to kick it off to Sean. What has it felt like to cover NBA games during this?
Well, I've now had both experiences with it. So I'm based in Portland, and I cover a lot of Blazer games as media. And just this past weekend, the a week ago tomorrow, the game against the Lakers last Friday was the first game of the season that they actually had fans in the building, and it was 10% capacity. The Rose Garden holds about 20,000 people, so it was like maybe 2,000 fans in the arena. Earlier in the season, I mean, they had the piped in crowd noise, and they still did all the game ops stuff. They did all the the announcer did all the player intros, and they had all the music, and it was basically like tried to make it feel like a real game. But just the last 3 games that I've been to at home where they actually had fans in the building, even just 2,000 people totally spread out in a 20,000 seat arena, just totally spread out for the proper social distancing and all that, the energy is just so different. And even that few amount of fans was louder than the piped in crowd noise that they had. And it just, I mean, going to the games earlier on in the season when there were no fans and it was all piped in crowd noise, it just kind of reinforced that this is, and I don't want to outright call it a fake season, just because obviously the players are putting in real work and everybody's working really hard to, not only the players to actually play hard, even though they have this kind of weird compressed schedule, but also a lot of people in the league office have worked hard to make this thing happen. But it's kind of a fake season.
Let's be honest. The Lakers championship, fake season. The Celtics sort of fading out of contention, maybe in the playing game. Fake season. We'll start. Reality starts again next year.
Well, the ultimate fake season team, I think, has been the Tampa Bay Devil Raptors.
Yeah,
having to play your whole, like, at least most teams, even though it's they have all these restrictions on what they can and can't do when they're on the road, and them not having fans in some of the arenas or having limited capacity. Most of the teams, at least, get 36 home games in their own arenas, and they get to sleep in their own beds in their cities. The Raptors players have had to play their quote unquote home games in Tampa, and they basically had 72 road games, and they've had to just be living out of a hotel for the entire season because they couldn't even, because of the border stuff, and because Canada's not doing great with COVID. Like, there was just all this other stuff that just goes into it. Like, if there's any team that can claim a fake season, I think it's them.
No, I'm gonna say a lot of my notoriety was about making lighthearted jokes about things that happen within the game that aren't even about the game.
Right.
When things started to unfold with the Wizards, when they got sick and it started to get other teams sick, and when Toronto started to get sick, something hit home for me that we need to really kind of change our ethical considerations of how we talk about the game of basketball and how we approach it. This season, it just feels like, because so much of the human element has been taken out of it. I think the fans being out of the stands takes the human element out of it. I think the coverage of these guys, without having a little bit of empathy and a little bit of humanity for the ups and downs of it, with really no practice, no rest, a condensed schedule, I think we need to take this as a point to really think about how we're covering NBA basketball. Rich, you were involved in covering the NBA. How have you viewed this season, and how have you viewed it in terms of the things you've seen in your career and just watching basketball in general?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, covering the NBA on a day-to-day basis, it wasn't for me. You know what I mean? I love it. I mean, there's so many of my good friends who cover the league, and I respect the hell out of what they do. For me, it just never quite. And again, I think because I felt a lot of the things that you're talking about. Sean, I think it was Sean, sort of compared the players to sort of frontline workers.
That was Ryan, actually, but
yeah, Ryan. They're the only frontline workers that are consistently criticized. You would call quitters in the public arena, right? That would face that over a game. And I think that is what kind of got to me on a day-to-day basis. It made it harder for me to do it. And now I think this year, especially, like you said, it was hard, man. And that's why I'm so happy that we're doing this and we did this to try to bring some of this positivity in, because I haven't even been able to go on Twitter in like a year. I can't watch the games and look at the discourse and feel good about it. Right. Like it's one, I just had to start logging off. But I think this, and Rips, this is why you are who you are, and why you can send out a tweet and we can raise almost $40,000 in a couple days, because no matter what you're going through personally, I feel like you're always lifting people up. And and that's what we need to
100%.
do more of. And I think that's what an event like this can do. And we're doing it. I mean, it feels good. I keep saying it's crazy to think about, you know, it was like the end of April when we had that first direct message exchange. But hey, can we do this? Well, how can we pull this off? And now here, almost $40,000 later, it feels great. And as part of that, what do you think? Should we transition into our next interview? We can pick up this conversation on the other side.
Yeah, I wanna just say a few things. I think this is great. More what the community has done is great, and what the former players and Marcus and their camp to come together with us is just fantastic to me. And whether we like it or not, in the coverage of this game and in life in general, things like social media and technology are just like, they're gonna be, I mean, they're obviously here to stay. And I just think in terms of how we treat each other, we can't lose our humanity in it, and we can't start taking our days out on people when we log in so much. I think it's been really easy to do in the pandemic. I think it's been easy to do this season, where it's been just frustrating for people. A lot of people have problems in their life, and they watch basketball, and that's like one of their only outlets. And I think every time we log in, or anytime we just deal with people in general, if we just try to be a little bit better to one another, I think the world is going to be a much better place. And I think this drive is very self-evident, that people want to do some good things to uplift people in the community and uplift NBA players too, because they've been going through it just like anybody else, if not more so, with all their travel. And from that, I'd like to transition into something much more lighthearted, much more fun.
A man who's traveled a lot, though.
a man with a great many travels, who is, to me, just an icon in terms of the international game and revolutionizing that. One of the coolest Celtics players of all time. Everybody I know, when they talk about like cult favorites, this guy is number one. He's a basketball Hall of Famer. He's a member of some of the greatest international teams of all time. And he's a guy who was so genuinely kind and cool. His name is Dino Radja. We love him. And this is an interview we have with Dino. So let it roll. If it's cool, I was just going to ask you a little bit of questions about your career and in your life. I'm just such a huge fan of you and in the different teams you've played on internationally. You're one of the guys who made the transition and was incredibly successful and became an all-star. And I think you've revolutionized the game and laying that groundwork for so many players today to make the transition and be successful. How was that transition to the NBA for you?
It was definitely, unknown world back then, because, today you have these highlights 5 minutes after the game. You can see whatever you want, whatever you are interested in. You just click and you can see it in 4K, 8K, 27,000 Ks, whatever you want. Back then, it was all written in newspapers and no videos. I didn't know how Magic Johnson looked like until he was almost retired. So it was, pretty much going from being a superstar in Europe to being an all-star and winning the championships and all that stuff, going to NBA and carry the bags. You start to build your career from zero, and it was very skeptical environment toward non-American players. They are soft, they can do this, they can do that, and even going there and try to prove people wrong, it was a huge accomplishment. And I remember big difference like between today and back then, when Doncic a few years ago came to Dallas. They gave him the keys of the city, and when I came to Boston, they gave me the bag with the used jerseys to bring them for washing. And but that's it. It was a very a huge step for me, not just for me. It was few players, Zarren, Tony, Divac, Sabonis, who made an impact in NBA in the 90s. And for me, it's a great honor to be one of the pioneers to discover America and America to discover us. And I'm very much, proud of all that generation that made the Dream Team possible. And for me, it's huge.
Who was your favorite teammate to play with on the Celtics? Was there a guy you clicked with instantly, or just had really good chemistry with?
I love my teammates. I love to play with D Brown. He's he's extremely athletic, unselfish guy. I love playing with him. I love playing with Chief. I learned so much. From Chief for that first year. I will never forget. Like we play a game. You hit the rookie wall, of course, like everybody else. And I had one game scoring 0 points. The only game that I remember in my whole life that I scored 0 points, and shooting like 0 for 14. And I have a stat sheet. Back then it was all paper, not like today. So I'm holding the stat sheet in my hands in the locker room after the game, all sad. And he comes to me laughing and say, "Ha ha ha ha! Welcome to NBA. Tomorrow is a new game." Oh.
Rips, Dino has a great story from his first NBA game. What happened when you were going to the Garden for that Knicks game?
It's also, if I can show you guys now, I have a goosebumps really every time I think of that moment. It's one of the most special moments in my career. Not regarding the moment when some game ends, when you win something. You're about to enter the game in historic Boston Garden where Havlicek stole the ball, and you are a kid from city of 200,000 people, and you come to one of two most famous franchises in the whole world, the Celtics, and you enter the game where all this history happened. You look at these banners up and retired numbers, and coach call your name and say, "Get in." And all these mixed feelings and then thoughts rush in your head, and you feel just unbelievable. Like that's a feeling that I will never forget. And then the moment you enter the game, you focus on the game. And
but didn't you almost miss the game in traffic on the way there?
Almost, yeah. It was also another interesting story. I live in Devonshire building downtown, which was pretty close to the Garden. But Friday, the rain, and I guess something happened, some car accident or something. Everything was blocked. So I exit my building. I did maybe a couple of blocks, and in the middle of the crossroads, a huge crossroads, I just sit for like half an hour, and I need 5 minutes to arrive to arena. I left early and everything, but I was sitting in the middle of the crossroads for like half an hour, and I figure out I will not make it to the game. So I call my wife and I say, "Listen, I'm leaving you in the car, running the car, key in the car, and I'm gone. Car cannot go anywhere." So I run to the Garden. And I made it in time, and she picked up the car and brought it back home.
Now, this is a non-basketball question and something I was really curious about. I saw you at a guitar festival. I was wondering, do you have any involvement in music? Are you a musician, or are you just a huge fan in general of guitars?
No, it's just my hobby. I started playing guitar like 7-8 years ago. And it's one of my different hobbies that I started doing after I finished with the basketball. I started, skiing, diving, motorcycling, doing this stuff that I couldn't do by the contract. And the newest one is playing guitar. So it's so much fun.
Who are your favorite artists and musicians?
Oh, ACDC, that definitely.
Awesome. I'm a big Angus Young fan myself.
I'm rock and roll generation.
Oh, I've never grown out of rock and roll, man. And I have
one.
Oh yeah. And one last question. Do you have any great Tommy Heinsohn stories? We lost Tommy in the last year. I was wondering what his impact and when you got to the league, how he was when you met him.
He was a great guy, really. You know, I know Tommy for 30 years already, and he will never die because, you know, I have so many tapes from my career, and every time you see the tape, you see the game, you hear Tommy's voice behind. And I used to sit with him even privately. We went out a few times with him, and he's also late wife. And he gave me all kind of advices. He liked my game, and I had a great relationship with him. Even, you know, when I come to Boston after to visit, I go to the Garden to see him. He was a great guy, great guy. Being in airplane with us all the time, traveling with us all the time, and you know, he was, you know, an example of the person.
Dino, any thoughts on Marcus Smart? We're here. We're raising money for Marcus Smart's foundation. That's part of the reason we got everyone together here. So, as a former Celtic, what do you think of him?
I know. I follow Celtics pretty much, you know, on a daily basis, how they're playing, what are they doing. And he's kind of the player that every team loves, not likes, loves, because he's the one that maybe not the greatest talent, but huge heart. And, you know, heavy grinder and the guy who you can depend on. He can, you know, guard anybody from 1 to 5, and he can, you know, change the game. He can hit from outside, but basically he has a huge heart, and that's the guy that basically everybody loves in their team and everybody's following.
Well, Dino, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. You're always going to be a fan favorite, just like you said, Tommy's always with us. Your energy and what you brought to the game is always with us, and we're so grateful for that.
I love Boston. I really, truly love Boston. Every time I land in Boston, I have a smile on my face, and there's not something that you can fake. It's just there.
And we're back. It's the Riffs, man. We're here with Rich. We're here with Sean. We're still moving and grooving in this thing. In the spirit of Sam and Derek, thank you to them for their picks. Yeah, check out their podcast. We're going to be doing our own picks. We're going to be doing MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, Coach of the Year, and then our finals matchup and our finals picks I'm gonna throw it to Sean first with his selections.
So for MVP, I think it's pretty obvious that it's Jokic. But and then I mean, if I had a hypothetical ballot, and I don't actually have a vote, but I would kind of go, I guess Jokic, and then probably Embiid, Giannis, and Chris Paul. I think could be in the mix with just how much better Phoenix got when he got there. And then whichever of Steph, Dame, Luka, whichever of those guys you want to throw in there, probably just whoever ends up with. But I think it's pretty clear that Jokic is gonna win it, and I think he probably should win it.
Yeah, that's an easy one for me too, Sean. I just think that to lose Murray the way they did, and not really fall off all too much,
right?
Like that's where you just need. Not only are you physically going to be the leader every single night, but you got to carry everything at that point. Like that. And granted, Porter stepped up a little bit, but like that was the true test. Like if you can keep these guys rolling when you lose Murray the way you did, and he's done it. So
he's also played just about every game. If you want to look at the other guys who are kind of in the running, whether it's Embiid or whoever, like those guys have all missed time. Jokic has basically played the whole season, and that's especially like I don't want to hold that against guys in this season because it's kind of because of just the unprecedented nature of the schedule and the pandemic, but it's to his credit that he has played basically the whole season.
Now, for me, it's an interesting conversation because I think we do get into groupthink a little bit. I think Jokic is the clear pick, and I say that I think the best player I saw play against the Celtics this year and the most stoppable was Joel Embiid. He obviously has had the injury issues after, the fall he took against the Lakers and such. But I think Jokic and Embiid are equally good players in different ways. I think they have about the same value in terms of like the construct of basketball and what they bring on both ends. I think their value is pretty close to approximating one another. But I think Jokic, oftentimes when we do the MVP discussion, it goes to the player who was pretty good last year but didn't have as good teammates, and then they get more good teammates. And Embiid did get that. He got guys like Danny Green. Tobias has had a career resurgence. I think Tyrese Maxey was a very excellent pick for them.
Upgraded coach too. That's the other thing.
And
general manager.
Well. Yes.
Right.
Everything got better around Embiid, and I think the quality, not to be dismissive of the players around Jokic because they're very good, but I think the quality of their roster degraded just a little bit. And I think in that he's also elevated his game as a scorer in ways I don't think anybody ever was going to expect of him from an aggression standpoint. And also he did it with a shorter off season. And we've seen a lot of teams that had short off seasons who are in the bubble fall off a lot and hard. And I think he just stepped it up to a new level with his conditioning, with his scoring, and with really everything. His leadership has been sensational, and he's quietly become a very good team defender, and that's something that you can't overlook with Nikola.
And this goes to what you said about Embiid and his supporting cast. And this isn't his fault by any means, but if you're talking about potential tiebreakers in an MVP race, the fact that the Sixers kind of didn't skip a beat and kicked a lot of ass when Embiid was hurt, like if Jokic goes down, Denver's not doing what Philly did without Embiid.
Especially now that Jamal Murray's also out.
Right.
And I mean, that's not just, I think Denver's a very good team. I think we've seen MPJ get a lot better. I think the Aaron Gordon move, I really like Aaron Gordon in that situation as a cutter. I think those two as cutters puts them in their best possible scenario as basketball players. And but I think if you think about it, I mean, nobody else is going to be able to hit cutters like Nikola Jokic, and he's just really a maestro in a way that we've never seen. Do you think that the dialogue nationally around Jokic is doing a disservice to just how good and revolutionary he is at the game of basketball? Because we've seen very few centers this talented as an offensive hub.
What do you mean specifically by the dialogue around him nationally?
Oh, it just seems insane, like that this is the worst MVP ever, that this is just a joke MVP. I don't think so at all. I think he's one of the greatest players of all time.
I think that there are some people that vote on MVP that see it as them marking what a player's historical significance is going to be. And a lot of them feel as though, you know, I mean, obviously he's totally out of the mix now because he missed too many games, but I think a lot of, before he missed as many games as he missed, I think a lot of the voters, or at least some of the national ones, felt like it was kind of their duty to give it to LeBron because LeBron only has 4 MVPs and people feel like he should have more. I feel like with Jokic, there isn't really that historical thing you can point to that says like when we write the NBA history. I mean, I mean, obviously that thing that the Nick Wright thing last week, I think everybody kind of got mad at it. I think I kind of understand what he was trying to say. I don't agree with it, but I kind of understand what he was trying to say. I think what he was kind of trying to get at there is that some of these players we're going to look back at historically and be like, oh, like it's going to be a thing of like, oh, well, like how did Kobe only have 1 MVP? How did Shaq only have 1 MVP? And because Jokic, A, plays in a small market, B, isn't really, you know, even not as much as a guy like Damian Lillard, who, like, yeah, Portland's also a small market, but Dame, you know, is in commercials and has a rap career and kind of has all this other media stuff going on that he does. People connect to him more. Jokic is just kind of a dude who's really good at, who's just incredible at basketball and is probably the most talented center that we've seen in the game since, God, I don't know, like peak, like since like Shaq or something. Just in terms of like his skill set, like he's kind of a throwback to like a, you know, Wes Unseld, like Bill Walton type of just incredible passer. But like,
Bill, yeah.
Well, right, and then Wes Unseld as well. But like all of, like, he's an incredible player, but he doesn't have that, like, kids aren't buying Nikola Jokic jerseys. And I feel like that's, and I mean, to me, that doesn't matter. I think, you know, if I had to vote today on MVP, and again, I don't actually have a vote. If I had to vote on MVP, I would vote for him without even really thinking about it. But I think for a lot of the voters who kind of approach this, I mean, you saw this conversation last year in the bubble where there were people making the argument that LeBron, I mean, to me, it was clearly Giannis last year, but there were people making the argument that, you know, for narrative reasons, and some voters have even actually said this outright, that for narrative reasons, they kind of wanted to give it to LeBron. And I think if Jokic has one thing that has maybe hurt him in the national discourse, it's that he doesn't really have any of that going for him because he's not really a magnetic personality the way that some of these other guys are. I don't think that should factor into it, but I think there are a lot of people who that does factor in.
And I'll say a lot of the people that were probably voting LeBron for narrative reasons are the same people you'll probably find breaking Clutch client news.
A little bit, yes. I would agree with that.
Well, I mean, you know.
It could be narrative / professional, you know, perks.
Hey, you said it, not me.
Yeah, and then listen, when it comes to dialogue around Joker, like some people are just going to complain. Some people always have to hate. Google Seinfeld sucks, like the most successful show of all time. There'll be plenty of hits. Dude, Prince sucks, right? There are probably entire blogs talking about how much Prince sucks. There are just going to be people out there, and again, that's what we're doing here. We're tuning out the negativity. We're pushing the positivity. We're saying that Nikola Jokic is one of the most beautiful and talented basketball players that we have seen in some time. There are very few experiences better than watching him play an NBA game.
For me, I didn't get to see it. I get to see the late era of it in terms of highlights and some as a kid, and Sean will be able to attest. But I think if Arvydas Sabonis had been able to play the bulk of his career in the NBA, yeah, I think that's really what Jokic is embodying with his play right now.
Yeah, if Arvydas Sabonis had actually been in the NBA when he was drafted, like the late 80s, early 90s, he didn't come over to the NBA until I believe 95 or 96. And he still had a couple of really good years in Portland, but he was kind of washed up pretty quickly by the time he actually got over here. But yeah, that's kind of that, or like, you know, a Bill Walton or a Wes Unseld, if you want to talk about great passing big men, of that, Chris Webber, like that type of game. That's kind of the closest comparison to Jokic right now.
The thing I like about Joker, and it was Paul Pierce just jumps to my mind as another guy who could classify under this, is because he doesn't rely at all on speed and athleticism.
Right.
It's the kind of game that ages pretty well. especially when he can shoot the way he can.
Yeah, I mean he's gonna be really good until like into his late 30s if he wants to. I mean, who knows if he even is gonna want to play that long? That's the thing that's kind of the wild card with him is I don't know if he's the kind of guy who's gonna want to play until he's until he's 40. He might just after this contract, he might just be like, you know what, I've made $100 whatever million. I'm gonna go in the Hall of Fame. I might just go back to Serbia and ride horses. I'm done. We don't know because he's so enigmatic. Like he just is so. I mean, I actually kind of like his personality. He has kind of a dry sense of humor that I think a lot of people don't realize that he has. But I don't get the sense that this is his entire life. I feel like he's going to, at a certain point, he's just going to be like, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore, and then just bounce.
Basketball writers hate that too. A lot.
They do. I mean, I would respect it immensely if he decided to do that, but.
The guys who don't live and breathe basketball every second of their life, they become the enemy eventually. So I hope they can take it easy on Joker.
I've always found it refreshing, and that's not to dismiss their work, but I think like people who are interesting to me are like Kyrie Irving and Jaylen Brown and people like that who have varied interests.
Chris Bosh, even though he's not playing anymore.
Chris Bosh is a guy who really changed my understanding of basketball, and I think we should embrace these guys who are doing a bunch of different things too. And someone who is like that, who we got to talk to, and someone who is also. His career took him into the international game, and he learned a lot of things and was on kind of the cusp of a wave of international play that came over. His career intersected with that. Acie Earl is a guy we get to talk to who was just incredibly interesting and generous with his time. And we have an interview with Acie, and now we're gonna let it roll.
So here's our first question for you. When you think back all these years on your NBA experience. We'll start with your Celtics experience. Okay. Is there a moment that jumps out still? I know it was 2 seasons in Boston. Was there like a welcome to the Celtics moment? Or was there one that just sticks out for you?
Yeah, there was a lot of moments. Obviously, like meeting Red Auerbach, for the first time, a couple times. He wasn't around all the time, but I think my first year, maybe 4 or 5 times. So, I mean, the legendary Red Auerbach, I mean, that's being a Celtic in itself, Obviously, seeing some of the older guys like Kuzi and Heinsohn, like they did radio and TV. And then, like, who else came around? Larry Bird would come around. He was a scout. Jerry Seestein did radio. ML Carr was community relations. Dennis Johnson was an assistant. Chris Ford was the head coach. So like growing up, like I knew about all this stuff. And so it was like, that's all now coming like wow. Like
it's your life.
I'm a Celtic. Yeah. So, and then playing with Robert Parish. I mean, that's like, okay. So it was there. It was there. Then Havlicek and those guys would come like once a year, like in the vet camp, right? They would come and hang around. But yeah, that was a surreal moment.
I'd like to ask you about the process of going through an expansion draft. That took your career to another location. What was it like to go through the expansion draft process?
Well, it was. You're right. It really it really was for the better for me, because like my first year I played 79 games, and the second year I played like 32 games or something like that, maybe 40 games, but it wasn't a lot. It was a drastic change. And they were going to go with Eric Montross as the starter, and I was trying to talk to ML Carr. ML Carr had took over as GM, but he didn't really. I wouldn't say he didn't know what he was doing, but he just didn't, I guess, communicate effectively at the time, and so he didn't tell me I was going in an expansion draft. So, I heard from John Sally like the last game we played, my first year in Miami. John Sally goes, "I'll see you in Toronto," and I said, what are you talking about? And he goes, you'll see. So he was going on an expansion draft, and so we both got drafted to Toronto. And so that was a very unique experience as well. But yeah, that changed my trajectory, like I said, for the better. So,
I don't know if we want to call it revenge, but you did get a little bit of payback.
Oh, yeah.
So you know exactly what I'm talking about, because I find it so cool that next year you go to Toronto. It's a sort of lazy game towards the end of the year in April. The Raptors are in Boston, the Boston Garden. You get the star. You drop 40 points on the team that left you unprotected.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the highlight of your NBA career when you look back at it right now?
Well, it is to a certain extent, but that whole week I averaged like 28.
I noticed that. Yeah.
Yeah. So we were on a road trip. It was the last 8 or 9 games of the season, and so I think we started in Milwaukee or somewhere, Detroit, and I had like 15 to 16 points, but I missed some easy shots and I missed some free throws. And my dad was like, "Oh, Ace, like, you're right there." Then the next game I had like 22 and I missed some free throws and some easy shots. My dad said, "You just put it all together, you're going to have a big game." And that was the Boston game. And then after that, I had like 28 against the Knicks, and then 30 against Nets and Sean Bradley, and then like 30 against Washington with George Mirasan and those guys. And so it was like a whole week.
And Ewing on the Knicks, right? That's
Ewing with the Knicks.
At MSG.
Yeah, all these games were on the road. So it was all road games. And so I almost got player of the week. I lost out to Chris Childs. So
that's impressive. And what's it feel like to have a stretch like that at the top level? And that's something that can stick with you, and especially where, like, you only played, I think, a year or two after that, but to have that knowledge, whether it's then or now, that you dominated at the top level in the world. Like, what else do you need as a basketball player?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of like a culmination of all the work. Like I played early in Toronto, and then I didn't play for a little while, but I still came and got my work done. I was around some good veterans, and they said, "Hey, just keep you never know, stay in shape." And the guys got hurt in the end, and then I ended up playing a lot, and I was ready. I was ready for that opportunity. So I mean, I always had that as my back, kind of in my hip pocket, that hey, I did that. I could do it I could play against the top players in the NBA and do well, and I did it.
Now, your career takes you into the international game, and we spoke to Dino Radja, who's kind of like an international basketball icon. And your play takes you over to these places in almost kind of an opposite direction, but it seems like you learn a ton as you go over to the international game. What did you take away from that experience, and what kind of knowledge have you implemented?
It's funny. So me and Dino were rookies together, even though he got drafted earlier and came over, but we were rookies together, and we really took care of each other. We were really close. And I got the respect of Dino very early because I played hard, I worked out, and I took the game serious. And he used to tell me all the time, like, "Oh, you'd be good overseas. You'd be good overseas." And I'm like, "Well, I don't want to go overseas," So it was funny. The first, I bounced around overseas for a little bit, but my first steady job was in Paris for his old coach. And so I'm playing for Paris, PSG, Paris Saint-Germain, their famous soccer team. We pull up to the arena, the practice arena, and there's a black Mercedes sitting out front. And I'm looking at the Mercedes and I go, "That looks familiar. That's Dino's Mercedes." Because it had like little scratches on it and it had a couple of dents. It was like a typical European looking, like taxi looking Mercedes. And I go, "That's Dino's." But I said, "Why would Dino be here? Dino's in Greece playing." I knew Dino was playing in Greece at the time. So, I go through practice, I talk to the coach. And so as I'm talking to the coach, he said, here's the phone. So on the phone is Dino. And so he's talking to Dino about me. And so he was like, "Hey, work hard. I set it up for you. Just do whatever." And then at the end of the conversation, I said, "Why is your car out here?" He goes, "I gave him the car. I gave the coach my car." So that was like hilarious.
What a guy, huh? He's a great guy.
Hey, here's a car. Here's a 600 Mercedes SEL. Here, just have it. So, yeah. So it was funny, but yeah. But so overseas went well for me. I got 3 MVPs in 8 years, and I won 2 championships over there. So, you know, I just probably because I took the game serious. I had a good work ethic. You know, I think Boston taught us that, like, be around the veterans, take the game serious. So it was, you know, it was cool. I mean, it was I was away from my family. That was hard, but I was really fortunate to play top level basketball.
We can see the sign behind you. It says "In Class with Professor Earl."
Mm-hmm.
And we know you coach a bunch, and you've written books, right? You've put out videos.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And are you a teacher as well, or is
well,
that?
Yeah, I taught at the University of Iowa for 7 years up until COVID. So I actually created 2 coaching classes and an agent player professionalism class, and I actually have written 8 books. And so, if you give me a second here, my latest book is can't barely see it, but is a textbook that me and my brother and another doctor created for a coaching class. And so we have this book that could get you certified. And then one of my other books that I did is how to create a college athlete. So that was a really good book too as well. But I have 8. They're all on Amazon. If you Google Acie Earl books, and they're on my website, venomsportstraining.com. So yeah, I like to write and like to do camps and training. That's kind of my 2 hobbies.
All right, now we can't let you go without asking you one more question about Moon 03.
Oh wow!
So we're doing some research on Acie Earl before the interview, and we stumbled down this sci-fi rabbit hole. So you've been, it's been a little while, but for a period of time, you were churning out like in-depth sci-fi movies.
Well, it wasn't me. It's one of those things like when you have a buddy or you know a guy and he's a kind of a cool guy and he says, "Hey, will you be in a movie?" And you're like, "Yeah, sure," knowing full well that he's not going to make a movie. So what did he do? He made 3 movies. And so my character was Fast Horse, which was like a Jabba the Hutt guy. So, but a nice Jabba the Hutt guy, like a Jabba the Hutt guy who was a helper. And so I didn't get a female to tie up next to me. So that was, but maybe that was probably good that didn't happen. But yeah, so he put it out, and it was like an underground hit around Iowa City. So like I go different places and people be like, "Hey man, I saw that movie, like you were great." So it was harder than what I thought because I had lines and I had to rehearse the lines. And so I rehearsed the lines. And so, you know, it's good though. A sci-fi movie's good because it has a plot kind of, and it has it has a motion way it's going. So I didn't have to rehearse too much because once they asked you the questions, you kind of knew what was going to go on. So yeah.
Great. That's awesome. Riff, do you have anything else in closing with AC?
In looking back on your skills, the NBA game and the game in general have changed a bunch. Did you have any skills that you didn't think that you had that weren't utilized in the context of the game?
Like I could shoot the 3. Like at Iowa, when we were playing, the big guys could shoot the 3. Like Brad Lowhouse had played for Iowa and set the 3-point and played for Boston. He set a 3-point record in Milwaukee, and shoot the 3 in Boston. So I mean, I could shoot the 3. I could shoot, pretty much from outside. I had passing skills, forward skills. All that I grew up from, growing Magic Johnson, watching Magic Johnson. So I had those skills, but the way that the game was being played, it was still in that 80s, 90s where they wanted the lumbering center and the close to the basket. And that was the most, the most highest percentage shot. So I didn't get a chance to do those things. In Toronto, I did a little bit. Milwaukee, not so much. And then when I went overseas, it was easy for me to play overseas because I could do those things. And they were bringing that out. Like that's what the younger players, and that's what they were doing. Like they would work on shooting and shooting in the morning, weightlifting and shooting in the morning, and then practice at night. So skills wasn't a problem for me. It was, that's why I was able to play at a high level for 8 years over there, because I could do so many things, and I was able to win 2 MVPs over there.
That's cool. Well, Acie, we're so grateful for your time. Thank you so much for joining us on here today.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you,
Good luck
Acie.
to everybody. Yep.
Sure.
All
Take care.
And we're back. I'd like to shout out my friend Brian. You can find him at Brian J Draft in his Patreon. And we're nearing the tail end of this. Rich, what are your thoughts on what we were able to accomplish? And where are we at financially right now in our fundraiser?
We are at, hold on, let me refresh it just to get the most up-to-date number. So with the original, what's interesting is that your original 20K, it was a little bit over 20K, right? Because was it 20? It was like $21.28. 21.28. So we're pretty much at $38,000.
That's absolutely insane.
And
I thought we were gonna get like 5.
Dude, we originally said like we were calling it. It was the People's Tommy Point Drive for 18. We were like, okay, should we maybe shoot for $18,000? That kind of works with the name, and we were kind of afraid to say it.
That seemed like a lot, and you guys have literally doubled it.
In the first five hour, I think you get that.
It's really humbling to have been a part of this with everybody. There's so many people I want to thank. Rich, is the point man on this. He got so many people involved. All of the players that we got involved, Kenny, Marcus, basically everything is because of Rich and his knowledge of just the community. And that was incredible that he had the vision for this. I want to thank Sean specifically for giving me any sort of platform. You know what I mean? He's been a great friend to me for so long, and Eric as well is just one of the coolest people. There's just a lot of people I want to thank in general. Efren is the most talented dude in this, like point blank period.
Yeah, shout out to Efren. He's been behind. You haven't seen him on camera. He's been behind the scenes. He's been making this whole thing happen, doing the transitions. We had the early technical difficulties, and he was the one that was like, "Okay, I know how to fix this. We're gonna make this work."
We had the idea. We had big dreams of how to do this. We had absolutely zero clue how to pull any of it off. We brought Efren in, and it just started coming together. We just sent him files. We didn't know what was going on, but it's turned into what everyone has been able to watch tonight. So amazing work.
There's so many other people I want to thank too. I want to thank the Grooves guy, Jake. He's provided the music for us tonight. He's a sensational drummer and keyboardist and just an overall great dude. I want to thank Ellie Kane, Mifo Visai, at Mifo Visai on Twitter.com. She provided for us some of the beautiful prints of Marcus Smart that we auctioned off to some people on the timeline, and that's incredible. I want to thank Tom and Nicole for helping publicize this. I want to thank everybody at Celtics Wire. I want to thank, everybody at Celtics Blog, Ryan Bernardoni, Danger Cart, who matched up to $500 in donations today, and that was just incredible. Our friend Nelson donated $1,000 to YounGameChanger, and that blew me away. I couldn't believe that anybody. I thought we were gonna get to $5,000 maybe. So to see somebody knock out a fifth of that in one turn was just incredible.
And some of it, the guy said that there was that one guy who donated $500 that the name, who said though, he said because you helped him make friends in life.
Yeah,
you have brought people into his life.
The Riftman is just such a positive force in
yeah.
online, and that's why when he asked me to do this, immediately I was just like, yeah, man, whatever you need, I'm here.
It's cool. I'm fortunate. The whole impetus of when I was posting was like I was laid up. Like a lot of people know this. I was crippled for a while, and I had nothing else that I could do, and I just started tweeting about basketball, and it became this insane thing that I did and got known for whatever in a small way. But I think most importantly is like if we can connect people, that's the best thing. Connect people in terms of like mutual aid. We've in the background of Celtics Twitter, we've helped people out with funerals and medical bills and stuff like that. And that's like to me, that's more important than any sort of clout or any bullshit like that. You know what I mean? And so I'm thankful for that. And I'm thankful just for everybody involved in this. And there's so many more people, but especially Rich and the YounGameChanger Foundation has worked with us so beautifully, and they were so gracious about all of this and getting Marcus on. And it's about Marcus tonight, but I think the community support thrown at him is the main thing that blew me away. So I want to thank everybody who donated, everybody involved with this. Let's keep the train rolling. I think we can do a lot of positive with our community.
Yeah, no, I agree. And like Kenny mentioned when we talked to him, it feels like days ago at the beginning of the stream, we had that first conversation, and obviously I imagine you get a lot of calls if you're one of Marcus Smart's right-hand men, right? I'm sure people are throwing stuff at you all the time. Okay, how can we do this? And I think that he quickly came to realize, there's usually a catch, right? We want Marcus, but there was really just no but. I was just like, hey, we just want to help. We just want to keep them good. And what Marcus and his team, the way they just brought us in and really welcomed us as part. It helped that we were raising almost $40,000 for them, I think. but just so quickly, everyone just we said one common goal, we synced up, and we pulled. It was really like 2 weeks. It took us to put this whole thing together, and it was really because like you said, Sean, a lot of it is Rifts reaching out, and so many people wanted to be like, what do you need, man? Like, I want to be a part of what you're doing here.
Yeah, and I don't want to take, credit for like any of this. Literally just Ryan asked me to do it. I said I would do it, and then he would just periodically would be like, hey, so this is what we're doing, be here at this time. And I was just like, okay, sure. Yeah, I mean, this is all you guys. This is like, I, was on here for 3 hours. That's kind of all I did, and gave a little bit of money, but it's all about this guy. It's all about the Rifts, man.
Very true.
Man, this whole thing has surpassed all my expectations. I want to thank everybody online who watched this, and I think we're gonna leave it to Efren to take us out with some jams and some artwork, which is really, if we're gonna be online, I think the best thing we can do is spread creativity and just make good posts. Like think what would Ice-T final level post, and let's make those and put out some great work. But thank you to everybody, and that's the show, and Efren's going to roll us out. Thank you all.
As you can tell, we're on the season finale. As you can tell, we're on the season finale. As you can tell, we're on the season finale. As you can tell, we're on the season finale. Jaylen Brown's ligament. Kemba Walker's knee. Jason Tatum's COVID. Time Lord's everything. Marcus Mars calf. Danny Ainge's off season. As you can tell, we're on the season finale. As you can tell, we're on the season finale. As you can tell, we're on the season finale. As you can tell, we're on the season finale. I'm locked in my house. Those greedy owners. Systematic racism. No storming white supremacists. Crazy conspiracies. COVID-19. As you can tell, we're on the season finale. As you can tell, we're on the season finale. As you can tell, we're on the season finale. As you can tell, we're on the season finale. Now let's shed these bad vibes. Go. Just wait till this team has an off season to get their shit together. I've seen all the haters. I'd like to give a shout out to the Riffs Man for raising money for people who need it. I'd like to give a shout out to HCT. I'd like to give an extra special shout out to Marcus Smart. And I'd like to give a shout out to the Celtics.